Hold on. I'm not sure what happened to my mic. Let me just quickly check here. Yo. Okay, my mic is working. That is good. Well, welcome everyone to a show with the Camper Report. This show was originally going to go live at about. Hold on, let me get this out. Show was originally going to go live at about midday my time, which is about 6 p.m. Mountain Time, I believe it was, on your guys' side of things, but had to be postponed a little bit. So now we're a little bit later in the day. It's 9 o'clock at night. So for you guys who are tuning in, thanks for tuning in this late at night. And we're going to talk a lot about, recap the NFL games. We're going to talk the playoff picture. We're just a jam-packed show for you guys today. And man, is it going to be a good one? Because there were some crazy games that happened. I mean, you're looking at Jaguars versus Bengals. That game went into overtime. Uh, Chiefs versus Packers. That one was really good. That one kind of was a bit of a surprise. So there were upsets. There were a lot of different, games that were just surprising. There were upsets. There were games that went into overtime. There were games that I think asserted, like, the quarterbacks asserted themselves as some of the best quarterbacks in the league in those games. And so, for example, the Dolphins beat up on the Commanders. Tua starting to look like his MVP form. You had Brock Purdy, who had a really good game against the Eagles. So there was just a lot of this was a very, how do you put this? This was a very telling week. It told us a lot of things. It told us who's in the MVP conversation and who's not. So, a very exciting week for the whole NFL, but let's kick it off with the recap, and then we'll kind of get to the playoff picture later on, and then I do have some Niners topics for you guys tonight, so stick around for that. But Chiefs versus Packers is the first game we have to break down, because this game really, to me, was exciting, but more importantly, the Chiefs now dropping to 8-4 are kind of they lost control really completely of the number one seed. They were tied with the Ravens before this week, and now the Dolphins are number one seed. The Ravens are tied for number one seed, and the Chiefs they're one game back from number one seed. So the Chiefs, this loss was huge for them, and let's get into it. Kind of what made them lose this game. Well, first, let's go to the Packers side of things, because I think this was very impressive on what the Packers did. Packers started off early in this game. They targeted tight end Kraft, their tight end Kraft, a lot in the first one or two drives. He had 3 catches right away, 37 yards. So that got them going early. The big thing was that, this game, the Chiefs' D-line wasn't getting home, and so it allowed the Packers to kind of do a lot of slow-moving play-action passes, and so basically, it allowed Jordan Love to just step back in the pocket and make dimes over the middle to his receivers, and they were able to run play action, and they were just able to be really creative, because the Chiefs' defensive line, a lot of times this game was just not there, was not present. And it allowed him to really read the field, Jordan Love. And Jordan Love had an incredible day today. Really improved, you know, was avoiding pressure perfectly, even when the Chiefs sent blitzes at Jordan Love or got pressure on Jordan Love. He was unfazed. Jordan Love was unfazed completely by it. This man was stepping up in the pocket when pressure would come his way. A perfect play that really caught my eye, and this is a perfect example of how good Jordan Love was when second quarter, I believe there was 10 minutes 44 left in the second quarter. He stepped up, evaded pressure, and threw a great throw to Watson, their receiver, for a touchdown. And so go back and look at that highlight, but plays like that are what define Jordan Love in this game, and really he's improving, and it's really plays like that are showing us why he's starting to come into his own. He's starting to come into his own form. So Jordan Love played really good in this game, and I mean, I could see the improvement of. I have it pulled up here, the PFF improvement of how good how good Jordan Love's grades have improved throughout the year. Let me just pull it up here. Yeah, so let's just quickly look at his PFF grades and kind of what they are now to where they were at the beginning of the season. So week 1 against the Bears, 62.5. 65.9 against the Atlanta Falcons, 63.9 against the Saints. Had a really bad game week 5 against the Raiders, 53 PFF grade. But now the last 5 games, his grades have been 91.8 against the Chiefs, 86.6 against the Lions, 65.5 against the Chargers, against the Steelers, 74.1, against the Rams, 83.2. So the last 5 games, he has really started to come into his own, and that's really what the Packers need him to do. Because their offense looked very stagnant when he wasn't playing well. So Jordan Love really coming into his own. Let's flip over to the Chiefs side of things, how Patrick Mahomes played and what really is the underlying problem for them. Patrick Mahomes, the big thing with him, doesn't have a ton of wide receivers, and it showed. And I've been saying this for so long, his only good wide receiver is Travis Kelce, but it's easy to double team him. Now, Rashee Rice is kind of coming into his own. He had actually quite a good game with 8 catches, but he's not like that dominant receiver. See, when the Chiefs offense was so good in the previous years, when they had Tyreek Hill, who is a dominant wide receiver, even last year, I mean, they had Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not a bad starting wide receiver. He's average. They had they had Kadarius Toney, who was on a different level. But now it's like Kadarius Toney has taken a major step back. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, they lost a few years ago Tyreek Hill. But they don't have another elite wide receiver. Rashee Rice is getting there, but he's just not that kind of guy. And that's an underlying issue that I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to fix this year. And that's why I don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl, because ultimately at the end of the day, the Chiefs, when they are going to be on this Super Bowl run, you can't have points in the game where your offense is really stagnant. And without proper wide receivers that Patrick Mahomes can throw to, there are going to be points in the game where his wide receivers are going to be stagnant. And the offense is going to be very stagnant for the Chiefs, and they're going to be able to do nothing about it. And I just don't think that problem goes away unless they get a new receiver. But the trade deadline has already passed, so they can't get a new receiver. So that's an underlying problem that they're not going to be able to fix, and I think it's really going to hurt them looking forward into the stretch. This bed right here, absolute mess. So I apologize with you guys. I'm kind of stringing together live shows again. A lot of these will be last minute, these live shows, because it's hard to really know when I can actually do one. I should be able to do one this Saturday, your guys' time, this Saturday, sometime at night, because I will be free that day. So look forward to this Saturday. I'll be breaking down a few more of next week's games. But let's move on. Even like with one more point I'll make on the Chiefs versus Packers game is about the receivers. I mean, there was one game so the Chiefs had 2 red zone trips, I believe, in the first half, and both of them ended in field goals, which is what killed them. But there was a play on the second red zone trip late in the second quarter towards halftime where basically Patrick Mahomes, I believe it was like near 2 minutes left. Patrick Mahomes is in the red zone, steps back, and there's just no wide receivers open. There's no one for him to throw to. And so I think he ended up running it and not getting the first down. They settled for a field goal I think they settled for a field goal, and I believe they went up. They were still down 14-6 or something like that. So the separation wasn't even there, and who knows? Who knows if they'll fix that problem? But let's move on. Colts versus Titans in the recap. This game was one of the more exciting games to watch this Sunday. It was a big Minshew game, big Gardner Minshew game. He threw it 42 times, 28 for 42, 312 yards, 2 TDs. So, Gardner Minshew, say what you will about him. He's very inconsistent as a quarterback, but in this game, he played really well. And Michael Pittman, 11 receptions, 105 yards, 1 TD. What's his name? Alec Pierce, 3 receptions, 100 yards, 1 TD. So those receivers were both all going off, and it showed. It really did show in this game. Samson Ebukam, our old friend from the 49ers, he used to be an edge rusher here, had 2 sacks and on Will Levis he's playing for the Colts. He had 2 sacks on Will Levis. And the biggest thing about him was, he had a 25.9% win rate when rushing the quarterback. So that means about every four times that he rushes the quarterback, he gets a pressure on the quarterback. And so that's really impressive. Had 2 sacks just in this game, and has really the last few games really come into his own. Samson Ebukam, edge rusher for the Indianapolis Colts. That's really another breakout guy for this game. What I take away from the Titans side of things, Will Levis, even though he was 16 for 33, there were enough wow plays in this game to make me think, oh, wow, like this guy is a lot better than Ryan Tannehill, even though his numbers aren't that good. Because he just makes these wow plays. He makes these plays that will mesmerize you, and he's really has a lot of physical talent. So it's easy to see why the Titans made the switch to Will Levis. And, Will Levis is playing so well on a bad team with no wide receivers and a terrible offensive line. Give it a few years, give Will Levis a few years to develop and get offensive weapons and an offensive line, he's going to be really good. So, I mean, good things happening for Will Levis, and good things happening for the Titans. They look like they're in the right direction, and they can start rebuilding with a proper franchise quarterback. I should have actually closed this blind over here because it is the brightness behind me is kind of not doing well for the light. But Grandizer says, howdy, Ben. What a 49ers victory. Yes, it was. Definitely the best team in the league. I think that is solidified now. And again, guys, for any Niners fans in here, we will get to the Niners content a little bit later in the show. So stick with us. Let's move on. Let's see. Well, real quick, before we move on, I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Before we move on, I want to talk about how the Colts could win the division now with Trevor Lawrence out. And that could kind of be interesting. Like, the Colts, one game, they're 7-5. Jaguars are 8-4. Trevor Lawrence out for a few weeks. The Jaguars' remaining schedule is Browns, Ravens, Buccaneers, Panthers, and Titans. The Colts' remaining schedule is Bengals, Steelers, Falcons, Raiders, and Texans. Colts have an easier remaining schedule than the Jaguars do. Or maybe, I would say slightly easier remaining schedule. So if Trevor Lawrence is out, you could see the Colts potentially getting that or winning the AFC East, or AFC South, which would be an amazing, amazing accomplishment for a first-year head coach in the Colts. I can't remember his exact name. If you guys remember it, let me know down in the comments. But they could really make a run at this thing. So that's something to look forward to in the coming weeks as well. Let's move on to Jaguars versus Bengals. We were just talking about the Jaguars. I'm not going to spend much time on this game because I'm going to get to the playoff picture. But it's another year of competitive AFC North for the Bengals. I mean, that division right now is the most competitive in the NFL. And I mean, Jake Browning, who would have thought at this point in the season, the Bengals backup quarterback would potentially be saving their season? Jake Browning, superhero, 32 of 37, 354 yards, and 1 TD in this game. Now, not all of that was really him doing the work. He had 3.8 yards per um, depth of target. So basically, he was averaging about 4 yards when he just threw the ball. And then he did have 9 or something yards per attempt, but that was because the Bengals receivers were so good after the catch. Again, 64.7% of his yards in this game, of his 354 yards, came after the catch when the receivers actually caught it. So, he wasn't throwing it downfield, but he was making the right throw in a lot of points of this game. According to PFF, he had no turnover-worthy plays, and he was playing really precise and doing what the offense asked of him. So that was just really key in and of itself in this game, and that's really what won the Bengals the game. But I couldn't help but think, like, maybe they wouldn't have won this game if Trevor Lawrence wouldn't have come out late in that game. It wouldn't have even gone into overtime. So maybe this was a fluke game. Maybe it was a fluke that the Bengals won, but they still got the win. They still got the win no matter what. Grandizer says, "How is your trip going so far?" It's going good. Seeing a lot of different sites. Maybe I should post a video on what I've actually seen so far. But let's move on to the playoff watch, kind of the playoff picture, because we're 5 weeks through and it's starting to kind of become like when you're first 6 weeks, you're like, you're not really focusing on the playoff picture. Now you're kind of starting a little bit more to focus on what this playoff picture could look like. And so, man, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it. So let's start with the AFC. Dolphins, number 1 seed. Dolphins are the number 1 seed. Grandizer would love that, but Dolphins are the number 1 seed. It goes Titans. Sorry, their schedule goes Titans, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills. The Ravens, who are tied for number 1 seed, but currently are the 2nd seed right now. And sorry, not Titans, Ravens, tied for number 1 seed, currently the 2nd seed right now. And I think they have the AFC North in lock, but who knows? Their Ravens are remaining schedules: Rams, Jaguars, 49ers, Dolphins, and Steelers. So I'd say the Dolphins actually have an slightly easier schedule than the Ravens on here. But we're really going to see what Tua and the Dolphins are made of, because their last 3 games, Cowboys, Ravens, and Bills, those are 3 those are harder teams to play. And so really the Dolphins' biggest tests are going to come those last 3 weeks. And if they can win, they almost have to win out if they don't want to secede this first seed to the Ravens. But if they can prove to us that that they're worthy of getting that number 1 seed, then I'm here for it, because the Dolphins are a good team. I'm cheering for them. But Ravens and Dolphins fighting for that number 1 seed, it's going to be exciting down the stretch. Grandizer says, "Did you hear about Corey Davis?" Yes, I did. That was very sad. I had watched a few of his stuff, but I hadn't really tuned into a lot of his stuff before. I think I was subscribed to him. I follow a few people on Twitter that know him very well, and so that's how I knew. But yeah, that is pretty sad. But let's get to don't count out, this is how tight the AFC, even the 1 seed, is, because don't count out the Colts or Chiefs either for the number 1 seed. And I know the Colts are probably not, or even the Texans. I know the Colts probably aren't going to get the number 1 seed, but if you think about it, they're only 2 games back, and they have a way easier schedule. And obviously, the Chiefs are only 1 game back from the number 1 seed, so don't count them out. And then you obviously have the Texans and the Broncos and a few other teams that are vying for just playoff spots. So that should be very exciting. Grandizer says, look up the Browns schedule. They might push the Ravens for their division. You really think so with Joe Flacco? I mean, if they won the division with Joe Flacco, that would be absolutely hilarious. I mean, I'm here for that, but I don't know with Joe Flacco. I could quickly look it up. Let's see here. Browns schedule. I mean, man, that would be miraculous in a way. I mean, they just got destroyed by the Rams, so I highly doubt that they would even have a chance of getting that number 1 seed. Browns schedule is Jaguars, Bears, Texans, Jets, and Bengals. I don't think they get the number 1 seed. I mean, I don't know what he's going on about the Browns being good, because I mean, with Joe Flacco, they just got destroyed by the Rams, who aren't like that great. So I don't think so. But NFC playoff picture, Eagles have a huge matchup versus Cowboys this next week. That's going to decide a lot, because if the Eagles lose, they're no longer in the number 1 seed. The 49ers would be. And I'm cheering for the Cowboys in this game for my own sake. But if they lose, Niners are going to be number 1 seed. Niners are 9-3. They need to win out, because the Eagles, after the Cowboys game, have such a cushy schedule. They could probably go undefeated after they play the Cowboys. If they beat the Cowboys, they could go. I mean, I don't see them losing another game after this Cowboys game. So the 49ers need to win out, because even if the Eagles lose to the Cowboys, the 49ers are tied with the Eagles. They'll have the tiebreaker, but they can't lose another game. So the 49ers need to lose out. Lions, I don't think that they get the 1st seed, but the Lions should be aiming for the 2nd seed. Now, the Lions need to hope that the Eagles get the 1st seed, because the 49ers, the big thing with the Lions is the 49ers have a better divisional record than the Lions, but the Lions still have 3 divisional games left to go. They have the Vikings twice and the Bears. They're 2-1 in their division. And the 49ers, I believe, are like 3-1 or something like. Well, no, actually, the 49ers are undefeated. Scratch that. The 49ers are undefeated, and they have won. They're 3-0. The Lions are 2-1. So, I mean, they're going to have to win out in their division and hope that the 49ers lose 1 game in their division. Because then if the 49ers lose 1 game in their division, then Lions and 49ers will both be 5-1 in their division. And then the Lions will have the head-to-head tiebreaker, because the 49ers lost to the Vikings. And if the Lions can beat the Vikings both times, then the Lions will have the head-to-head tiebreaker versus the 49ers. So basically, they need to hope that they win out in their division with these next 3 divisional games. They need to hope that the 49ers at least lose 1 divisional game. And then they need to hope, and that's basically, I think, all they need to do. And then they also need to hope that the Eagles do not lose to the Cowboys this Sunday, because then they'll stay at the number 1 seed. So that's how they can kind of get the 2nd seed. But I mean, I don't know. If I had to bet right now, I'd say 49ers get the 2nd seed, Eagles still hang on to the 1st seed, and Cowboys, I would say, get the 5 seed again this year. So, but what's a joke is, like, the Cowboys, if they get the 5 seed, are going to absolutely destroy the 4 seed, which is going to be probably either the Falcons or Saints, which are both terrible teams. But let's see here. Let's answer the comments. Hold on. that Browns versus Rams was close up to the fourth. The final score does not reflect how close that game was. Their defense is very good. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't actually watch the game completely because I was not breaking it down this week. So who knows? Who knows? I just know that the Browns offense is pretty stagnant without Nick Chubb, without Deshaun Watson. So it's going to have to be their defense, and your defense can only carry you so far. So I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. Let's get to underlying heroes for the 49ers. Some of you guys have probably been waiting for this topic, but we have to talk about some of the guys that have been overlooked. I mean, when you're talking about the 49ers, you're talking about Drake Greenlaw, Fred Warner, even Charvarius Ward a little bit. You're talking about Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy. But there are a few other guys that kind of are the glue that makes this meat stick. And one of the guys that I can think of, Jair Brown, he came in for Talanoa Hufanga when Hufanga got injured in this game. And I mean, not in this game, in the Buccaneers game, when Talanoa Hufanga got injured in the Buccaneers game, he came in. And now Talanoa Hufanga is out for the rest of the year. And I've literally, like, no team has gotten a big play on the 49ers, which seems to me like Jair Brown isn't missing an assignment. And so that's really encouraging to me because, like, have we really seen that much of a step down from Talanoa Hufanga to Jair Brown? I don't think so. I mean, there have been no big plays or bad plays that he has given up since Talanoa Hufanga came back. The only play that you can point to is when he first stepped on the field against the Buccaneers and he gave up that, like, 30-yard bomb. But that was, like, when he first stepped on the field. Ever since then, this man has been absolutely golden. So Jair Brown's one. Aaron Banks is number two. Now, some people said, Feliciano was really good and whatever. But I seem to think when Banks was out for a few games, I think it was 2 games this year, their running game was, I mean, the first thing, the pressure was not the same. I know the nose tackle for the Buccaneers, Vita Vea, he was getting a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy in that game. And now with Banks back, like, it's just when Banks has been out, I have noticed a major difference in pass protection and a little bit of run protection as well, or the run game as well. But I just think that he affects this, and he also gives this team a lot more depth. But the effect that he has on this team, I think, is very noticeable. So Aaron Banks is definitely an unsung hero for the 49ers. If you guys can think of any other ones, let me know. But let's get on to the last topic. Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back for the Jets. They lost to the Falcons, and I don't think they've officially announced that he isn't going to come back. But I think it's pretty evident now that Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back because they lost to the Falcons, and now I think they've had 9 losses. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers comes back this year. And because the thing is like, this guy is almost 40 years old. He's coming back from a major injury. I just don't know if you want to risk that per se. And I don't know if he wants to risk that because you're an older guy and your team most likely is not making the playoffs. You're probably not eliminated yet. I think if you lose one more game, you're eliminated. So I don't know I know they opened up his practice window, but I don't know if he comes back in this year. And the thing is like, it would kind of be stupid to bring him back in this year. So if you're Robert Saleh, I would just say Aaron Rodgers, just make something up, like his injury isn't fully healed yet or something. I don't know. I don't think he comes back this year. I don't know why it would be worth it, and just keep him for next year. the funny thing about the Jets is I believe at one point in the season they were 4-4. So they actually were doing not terrible. And then I think they've lost like 4 or 5 straight. So um Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back. And that's that. So that is the show, everyone. That lasted about 30 minutes long. It was a good show. It was a good show. I'll be back on Saturday, your guys' time, Saturday night probably, to break down the 49ers versus Seahawks game, to break down a few more of the matchups for next week. So that will all be happening on Saturday. Oh, I already read that comment. Okay. That will all be happening on Saturday. And so stay tuned for that. Again, these shows aren't going to be consistently, uh I'm not going to be consistently doing them. It's going to kind of be I don't have set days yet because it's definitely hard to plan when I'm going to do a live show. So just put your notification bells on and look out for when I go live next because it's definitely going to be inconsistent for sure. Um Grandizer says have a safe trip. He says those Browns, aka dogs, have rabies. They bite hard. They're playing well. I don't know, man. Joe Flacco, that's a new low. Didn't they sign him like 2 weeks ago? He's like 40 years old or something. I have a hard time believing that they're going to make the playoffs riding on the backs of Joe Flacco. So we'll see, though. We'll see. Have a good rest of your night, everyone. I guess it's pretty late over there. It's daylight over here, but have a good rest of your night, everyone.